Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about my week number 7 wide receiver rankings for fantasy football in 2021. Inside today's video, we're going to be going in depth into my top 32 ranked wide receivers of the week, as well as explaining why I have them ranked at each and every single spot inside the top 32. But before we can get on into things, I would like to ask, if you are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, to please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Not only is it free, I put out content every single day to help you guys win your 2021 Fantasy Football Championship. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure to leave a like on today's video to help boost the video up the algorithm so that more beautiful people like yourself can see today's video. I would also like to ask, if you guys are on Twitter and would like to follow me on there, to please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. So without further ado, let's get into my week number 7 wide receiver rankings, beginning at number 1. The headliner of the wide receiver rankings is Davante Adams, wide receiver of the Green Bay Packers, going up against the Washington football team this week. Going up against the Washington football team defense, especially the pass defense, is a wet dream matchup for any wide receiver. A wide receiver with the skill set of Davante Adams should have no issue potentially dropping a 30-point bomb on the face of the Washington football team defense. I expect him to have a big game every single week, this week especially, up against a weak Washington football team defense. At number 2, we have Tyreek Hill of the Kansas City Chiefs going up against the Les Titans, the Tennessee Titans in Tennessee. Tyreek Hill has been pretty solid thus far this season, as per usual, right? The guy is just a game-breaking wide receiver because, sure, maybe he'll have some down games, but at the end of the day, he make up for it with those humongous games where the guy could drop 35, 40 fantasy points like it's nothing. All it takes is 5 catches for Tyreek Hill to get 200 yards and 2 touchdowns in any given matchup up against the Tennessee Titans defense that is very bad up against the pass. We should expect a very solid game out of Tyreek Hill. At number 3, we have Davante Adams, wide receiver of the Arizona Cardinals, going up against the Houston Texans. Now, normally, it is a wet dream matchup for any wide receiver going up against the Houston Texans, but this week, we got a revenge game for DeAndre Hopkins up against the Houston Texans. How much revenge is in the narrative, though? Because I would think that DeAndre Hopkins wouldn't be vengeful toward the Houston Texans. He'd be happy that the Houston Texans are so dumb to trade DeAndre Hopkins to the Arizona Cardinals for a used condom and a half-eaten bag of potato chips. But at the end of the day, DeAndre Hopkins, it's still a revenge game. I expect him to absolutely slice up the Houston Texans defense. They stand no chance up against a wide receiver with the skill set of DeAndre Hopkins. At number 4, we move to Cooper Kupp, wide receiver of the LA Rams, going up against the Detroit Lions. And speaking of revenge game, we have a game with a double revenge game. Jared Goff versus the Rams and Matthew Stafford versus the Detroit Lions. Cooper Kupp absolutely bent over the New York Football Giants defense last week, and I expect him to do the exact same thing up against the Detroit Lions. All of him, Davante Adams, Tyreek Hill, DeAndre Hopkins, they could all finish as the number 1 wide receiver of the week, and it would not surprise me at all. I expect Cooper Kupp to have an absolute smash game up against the Lions defense. At number 5, we have DJ Moore, wide receiver of the Carolina Panthers, going up against the New York Football Giants. Now, like I just said, Cooper Kupp went to Pound Town up against that Giants defense last week. Now, I understand that DJ Moore, he started off the season, he was fucking on fire, NBA Jam style, and as of recently, the last 2 weeks, he's really simmered down. He failed to eclipse over 10 half PPR points in the last 2 games, and that's not great for a wide receiver that every single week I have sky-high expectations for. But going up against the Giants defense is going to fix that all. Now, I'm not telling you that the Carolina Panthers have had these impossible opponents to beat the last couple of weeks, because that would just be fucking false, because their opponents weren't all that hard. DJ Moore should have been playing better, but he was still getting the targets. It's more the fact that Mono Man Sam Darnold didn't look all that great in those games. I expect Sam Darnold to bounce back here up against the Giants, and thus that will create a great game for Mr. DJ Moore. At number 6, we got Deebo Samuel, wide receiver of the San Francisco 49ers, going up against the Indianapolis Colts. All offseason, a lot of people talked up. They gave the Gawk Gawk 9,000. They were sucking off the Indianapolis Colts defense, and to me, that defense doesn't look all that good. Deebo Samuel has been dominant, whether it's Trey Lance, whether it's Jimmy Garoppolo. The best bet right now is that Jimmy Guap is the starting quarterback of the team. Shouldn't matter at all, though, because Deebo Samuel, like I said, he was great with Lance. He's great with Jimmy Garoppolo. It seems like he is just the focal point of the passing attack. George Kittle is out, so Ross Dwelly is in, so you don't have to worry about George Kittle. And Brandon Ayuk, while he escaped the doghouse, this motherfucker, basically just his nose escaped the doghouse. The whole rest of his body is still in the doghouse. They're not giving the ball at all to Brandon Ayuk, and that just continues to bolster an even stronger point to why Deebo Samuel can be a top 10 wide receiver on the week and potentially a top 5 wide receiver up against the Indianapolis Colts in a game that I absolutely hate. This game seems like it is going to be so boring. But with that said, even if it's a boring game, I still think Deebo Samuel will play well. At number 7, we have Ja'Marr Chase, wide receiver of the Cincinnati Bengals, going up against the Baltimore Ravens. Ja'Marr Chase has been the biggest surprise, in my opinion, this season. Now, it shouldn't have been surprising because Ja'Marr Chase was a monster at LSU. Ja'Marr Chase at LSU played with his quarterback in the NFL, Joe Burrow. It was a match made in heaven, but no one saw this coming, or very little people saw this coming, because during the offseason, there's so much talk of, oh, Ja'Marr Chase can't fucking catch the football. In preseason, he's playing like shit. And then like a couple of days before the season, it comes out that this guy can't even catch an NFL football because he can't see it, because there's no white stripes on it, like the NCAA football. And there were all of these points that were further digging the grave for Ja'Marr Chase's rookie season. Now, I thought, hey, maybe things would click a couple of weeks on into the season. Maybe Ja'Marr Chase would have a great rookie year, but it would just take a little bit of time. But guess what? This motherfucker, week 1, stomped on my face. He murdered me. Ja'Marr Chase is amazing. He's the best wide receiver on the Cincinnati Bengals, and it's not even close. I like Mr. T. Higgins. I think he's talented. I think Tyler Boyd is talented. But at the end of the day, Ja'Marr Chase is the number 1 guy for the Bengals, going up against the Baltimore Ravens. But Nick, didn't you see last week that Justin Herbert, the pervert, played really bad up against the Ravens? Doesn't that mean that Joe Burrow, since he's not as good as him, will play bad too? Maybe. But we just saw Carson Wentz fucking slice and dice up the Baltimore Ravens defense just a few weeks ago, so I think Ja'Marr Chase will be just fine. At number 8, we have Calvin Ridley, wide receiver of the Atlanta Falcons, going up against the Miami Dolphins in Miami. Calvin Ridley has not played since week number 4. In week number 5, when the game was in London, he ended up missing that game for personal reasons, I believe. Then week number 6, they were on bye. So here we are in week number 7, up against the Miami Dolphins, the 2 most recent teams that played in London. Technically, because the Falcons played in London, as did the Jaguars and the Jets, so I guess that doesn't make very much sense. But at the end of the day, Calvin Ridley versus the Dolphins. The Dolphins' defense has been a complete and utter unmitigated fucking disaster. A dumpster fire of a defense that last year, the run defense wasn't good, but the pass defense was at least able to kind of save the life of this defense. This defense looks unfucking repairable. Even fucking handy-mandy Bob the Builder couldn't fix this shit. Calvin Ridley is going to absolutely eviscerate my Dolphins defense, and I hate to see it. At number 9, we got Chris Godwin. At number 10, we have Mike Evans, both receivers of the Bucks, going up against the Chi-Town Bears. This is a revenge game for Tom Brady, not because of the fact that Brady was ever on the Bears, but because Brady lost to the Bears last year and forgot what down it was. What a silly goose that man is. Maybe the old age got to him, but here, up against the Chicago Bears, this is going to be a murder. And without Antonio Brown, that really opens the door for the upside of Chris Godwin and Mike Evans to be the main 2 wide receivers there, because with Antonio Brown there, with all 3 of them, it gets a little bit confusing because every week one of them has the down game, and it's very hard to kind of pinpoint which wide receiver that's going to be, whether it's going to be Antonio Brown with the down game, whether it's going to be Mike Evans, or whether it's going to be Chris Godwin. But without Antonio Brown there, the best bet is that none of them will end up being bust this week, so I expect Chris Godwin as well as Mike Evans to have big games this week in week number 7. But before we can get on into wide receivers 11 through 20, I would like to ask, if you have ended up enjoying thus far, to please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, make sure to leave a like on today's video as well. Now on to wide receivers 11 through 20. At number 11, we have Scary Terry F1 McLaurin, wide receiver of the Washington football team, going up against the Green Bay Packers. Terry McLaurin has stunk. You can smell it through the fucking screen when you played this guy in your lineup. It smelled that bad. But at the end of the day, I think he will bounce back here up against the Green Bay Packers. The Washington football team offense sucked ass up against the Kansas City Chiefs last week, even though I expected this to be a tit-for-tat game, right? Because the Kansas City Chiefs defense is terrible up against the pass. The Washington football team defense is terrible up against the pass, and that should have lent to a shootout, a back-and-forth game. That was not what happened at all. The Washington football team got their back blown out, but at the end of the day, Terry McLaurin is still an option that I like, and with so many people on bye this week, with the Bills, the Cowboys, the Jags, the Chargers, the Vikings, and the Steelers all on bye, It's going to move everyone up. Terry McLaurin's a guy I'm a little bit nervous about, but I'm definitely going to play him this week. At number 12, we have A.J. Brown, wide receiver of the Les Titans, going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. In this game, A.J. Brown should be in for a big one. The question is, will he be able to avoid the fact that he ate too much Chipotle the other week and had, like, food poisoning? Derrick Henry, after the game, came out and said, I'm glad we brought enough toilet paper for A.J. Brown. This guy was just shitting himself all over the field, and somehow, while he was sick, I'm pretty sure that was his best game of the season. So hopefully up against the Kansas City Chiefs, he's all good to go. He's not worrying about shitting himself on the field. And A.J. Brown could have a humongous showing up against the Chiefs defense. At number 13, we have Robert Woods, Bobby Trees of the LA Rams going up against the Detroit Lions. Again, just like with Mr. Cooper Kupp that we talked about earlier, this is a smash matchup. There's no reason to bench Robert Woods this week. The Detroit Lions defense is complete and utter dog shit. And I expect Robert Woods to be able to put up an excellent showing up against the Detroit Lions. Robert Woods does appear to not be the focal point of this offense, right? Because that one game when Sean McVay was like, oh, dude, I messed up. I really messed up. We need to give the ball more to Robert Woods. And then he just force-fed Robert Woods. That was great. But now it's kind of back to the Cooper Kupp show. But Robert Woods is still more involved than he was earlier on in the season when Cooper Kupp was playing so well. So I'm still fine ranking Robert Woods relatively highly this week. Also to note, none of the players that played on Thursday Night Football will be included in this video. You want to know why? Because they already played. And I feel like there's no reason to rehash players that have already played. I already know we're already like 10-ish minutes into this video. So there's probably already 50 comments. Nick, where's the Browns players? Where's the Denver players? They're just not included in this video. So I'm sorry about that. If you guys want that, I could do it, but I just don't really see too much of a reason behind doing that. At number 14, we got Hollywood Brown, wide receiver of the Baltimore Ravens, going up against the Cincinnati Bengals. During that onslaught of the LA Chargers defense, the passing attack for the Baltimore Ravens just was non-existent because they were up by so much, they were just pounding the rock down the throat of the LA Chargers defense. So Hollywood Brown has a bad game. Oh man, Nick, does this mean that Hollywood Brown's going to go back to being very inconsistent? Maybe, but I don't think so. I think Hollywood Brown, he's done with being inconsistent. He's had so many great games this season. Sure, he had a down game last week. He had a down game earlier on in the season up against the Lions where he dropped 2 easy touchdowns. But besides that, he's been very consistent for fantasy football, and I expect a big bounce back up against the Bengals. At number 15, we got DK Metcalf, wide receiver of the Seattle Seahawks, going up against the New Orleans Saints. Now, it appears with Geno Smith under center, he just doesn't see Tyler Lockett, doesn't throw the ball his way, and that is going to boost the upside of DK Metcalf. Now, this is a matchup that I don't love. The New Orleans Saints defense has looked they've looked great some games, and they've looked terrible other games. They're a fucking rocky roller coaster of a team defensively. Same thing goes with the offense. In some games, Jameis Winston looks amazing. In other games, he looks like the Jameis Winston of the Buccaneers. But even with that said, DK is still the number 1 receiver of the Seahawks, and I believe Geno Smith will force feed him, so I think he has an alright game. At number 16, we got Jalen Waddle, wide receiver of my Miami Dolphins, going up against the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons defense isn't very good either. I know I kind of was going in on the Dolphins defense. The Falcons defense is just worse. Let's be honest. Jalen Waddle went off in London, baby, up against the Jaguars. He's clearly the number 1 wide receiver on the Miami Dolphins, so I expect him to get force-fed in this game up against the Falcons. At number 17, we have Sterling Shepard, wide receiver of the New York Football Giants, going up against the Carolina Panthers. Everyone's out for the Giants. Everyone is out. Tony's out. Galladay is out. Barkley is out. Seems like it's going to be Sterling Shepard season. Who else is Daniel Jones going to throw the ball to? Daniel Jones was a complete and utter disgrace last week. I understand. He played like shit up against the Rams. But I think he plays just good enough here up against the Carolina Panthers, where it's not a complete and utter murder. Because last week, Daniel Jones stood no chance. He definitely stands a chance this week up against the Panthers. So I like Sterling Shepard a decent amount. At number 18, we got Brandon Cooks, wide receiver of the Texans, going up against the Arizona Cardinals in Arizona. This is a bad matchup, but Davis Mills hasn't looked as awful recently, and Brandon Cooks is still the number 1 wide receiver on the Texans. So you just got to hope that he gets force-fed the rock up against the Arizona Cardinals, and they just throw him the ball 20 times so he can catch like 9 passes, get like 70 yards, and you're fine in PPR and half PPR. I don't love Brandon Cooks this week, but again, with all of these teams on bye, these guys that are normally going to get drop down the rankings because of their matchup. They're just chilling here at wide receiver number 18. And next up, we move to number 19 with DeVonta Smith, wide receiver of the Philadelphia Eagles, going up against the, turn your volume down, the Las Vegas Raiders in Viva Las Vegas. DeVonta Smith up against the Raiders. This is a matchup that worried me earlier on in the week, and it still worries me right now because the thing with Jalen Hurts in this offense is they just look so bad at the beginning of every single game. It seems like they have no shot of even being close to winning a football game, and then out of nowhere in the fourth quarter, they get rock hard. It's like they took the Viagra at the beginning of the game, and it doesn't kick in till the end of the game. DeVonta Smith is a guy that I wouldn't be surprised if he had 150 yards and 2 touchdowns up against the Raiders. I also wouldn't be surprised if he has like 3 targets in this game. That's just how DeVonta Smith has been this season. He's been rock solid. He's also been ice cold in games. So DeVonta Smith, wide receiver 19, due to the immense amount of upside he has up against the Raiders D. And number 20, we have T. Higgins, wide receiver of the Cincinnati Bengals, going up against the Baltimore Ravens. Now, T. Higgins has clearly been hampered by injury. So let's hope this week that the injury bug is not in favor of T. Higgins and he ends up being a little bit more healthy. This could be a game that is higher scoring between the Bengals and the Baltimore Ravens. If the Bengals are able to crawl back into the game, if they're able to keep up with the Baltimore Ravens' explosive offense, I expect T. Higgins to look pretty solid in this matchup. Next up, we got wide receivers 21 through 30. At number 21, we have Jakobi Meyers, wide receiver of the New England Deflatriots, going up against the Jets. Wet dream matchup for the wide receivers. Issue here is that Jakobi Meyers and basically none of the other wide receivers, except for Kendrick fucking Bourne, end up scoring in any of these games, which sucks because they're going to get the volume. Jakobi Meyers is definitely going to get the volume, but will he be able to find his way into the end zone? Maybe, maybe not, and that is what limits Jakobi Meyers' upside immensely. At number 22, we got Michael Pittman Jr. of the Indianapolis Colts going up against the San Francisco 49ers. Last week, Michael Pittman went silent into the night like that Christmas song. But this week, I expect him to look a little bit better up against the 49ers. Carson Wentz, like I said off the rip of the video, or maybe it wasn't right at the beginning of the video, but at some point I talked about how Carson Wentz actually doesn't look that bad. Like, to me, he looked pretty bad at the beginning of the season. As of recently, he has looked relatively solid. I think he could have a decent showing up against the Niners defense. So Michael Pittman, being his number 1 wide receiver, should have a shot to play a lot better. At number 23, we have Tyler Lockett in my pocket skirt, wide receiver of the Seattle Seahawks, going up against the NO. Like I said, with DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett just seems to be invisible to Geno Smith. It's like Geno Smith doesn't see him out there, but it makes sense because the routes that Tyler Lockett is running, he's deep down the field. Geno Smith isn't going to be able to hit a guy in stride like Tyler Lockett, but all it takes for Lockett is one perfectly thrown, or not even, just decently thrown strike to Lockett down the field for him to pay off big in this matchup up against the New Orleans Saints. He's wide receiver 23. He's very risky, but with all these bye weeks, they just keep on moving up the rankings. At number 24, we have CD, Corey Davis, wide receiver of the New York Jets, going up against the New England Deflatriots. Corey Davis appears to be the number 1 receiver on the team. Will he be the number 1 in targets week in and week out? Maybe, maybe not, depending on how much Zach Wilson favors throwing to Jamison Crowder or to Corey Davis in a given matchup. At the end of the day, don't love this up against the Patriots, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets were sneaky close into this game. This is one of the closer spreads on the week because there's a lot of games where one of the teams is favored by like 10, 16, 17 points. So this one, I believe, is a 6.5 or a 7-point spread. So hopefully the Jets can keep it close. At number 25, we have Marquez Callaway, wide receiver of the Saints, going up against the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks defense is so bad against the pass. And I don't see that changing. Maybe it will this week, right? Because Jameis Winston is just a funnel for throwing interceptions. But maybe we get the good Jameis. And all it takes with Marquez Callaway is that one deep ball as well. He appears to be the number 1 wide receiver on the Saints. So I'm willing to take the risk up against the Seahawks. Number 26, we have Allen Robinson, wide receiver of the Bears, going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now with everyone unanimously off of Allen Robinson, with everyone throwing in the towel saying this guy fucking stinks, and I agree, something tells me that the fact that we have now universally pivoted off of Allen Robinson, that no one wants to start him, I don't want to start him, that he's somehow going to have a big game, that he somehow, when everyone is off, he has that big game. Now, if there was ever to be a game where he fucking had an amazing showing, it would be up against the Buccaneers. Why? Because the Buccaneers' pass defense isn't very good. Now, the question is, will Matt Nagy and Bill Fire the Lasers be able to uncork Justin Fields? Because it seems like they've put him in a fucking straitjacket. They've bubble wrapped him because they don't let him throw the ball 30 plus times a game. They're kind of just keeping him around that 20 range, trying to just run the rock and get out of there with the win. Hope the defense plays well. But you want to know a team you can't run the rock against? The Buccaneers. Buccaneers' run defense is amazing. Their pass defense stinks. Throw the ball, Chicago. Will they be able to figure that out, though? Who knows? Who really knows? At number 27, we got Hunter Renfrow, wide receiver of the Raiders, going up against the Eagles. Hunter Renfrow is just super safe every single week. His upside is limited. He's never a guy that's going to drop like 30 fucking points, but he's a guy that could see 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 targets any given game up against the Eagles. Don't love the matchup, but I'm fine playing Hunter Renfrow in this spot. At number 28, we have Mecole Hardman, wide receiver of the Kansas City Chiefs, going up against the Les Titans in Tennessee. Tyreek Hill is the number 1 receiver there, but it feels like Mecole Hardman has finally carved out that role of being the number 2 wide receiver in the Kansas City Chiefs offense. But Nick, isn't Travis Kelce the number 2 wide receiver? Kind of, yeah, but I'm talking about in the wide receiver core. Mecole Hardman's the number 2. He has that immense upside, that huge upside up against the Titans, so he cracks the top 32 at 29. We have Darnell. Here comes the Mooney. Money, 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 money. Up against the Chicago Bears, my bad. Up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Again, this is a great matchup, but will Bill Lazor and Matt Nagy be able to complete the puzzle? Figure out that, hey, we need to throw the ball in this game. I don't know when it comes to Matt Nagy. The guy seems like a fucking idiot. Mooney's a guy that I talked up all offseason. I was so excited. Oh, Justin Fields under center. Everything's going to change. It's going to be very, very nice for Mr. Darnell Mooney. Very, very nice. I like for Allen Robinson, and it's not. It's just not. But again, with all the bye weeks, these guys move up. Darnell Mooney's a talented player. The issue is the team. At number 30, we have Jamison Crowder going up against the New England Patriots. Again, Crowder might just get force-fed in this game. I talked on the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel. It was me, Eitan, Matt Savoca, and we were talking about some sneaky starts. I think we talked about Jamison Crowder. I'm pretty sure. I know it was on the show sheet. Does that mean we talked about it? Maybe, maybe not, but I'm pretty sure we talked about it yesterday on Friday on the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel, where I post videos on there as well. We were talking about Jamison Crowder because he may just get force-fed in this game up against the Patriots because that's how this offense kind of works. Even with Adam Gase, with the new head coach in Saleh, it doesn't really seem to matter at all. They're just going to force-fed Jamison Crowder. It doesn't matter if it's Model Man Sam, if it's Zach Wilson, they feed the guy, so he does have a chance to get a lot of receptions in this showing. Next up, we got wide receivers 31 through 32. At number 31, we got Christian Kirk of the Cardinals going up against the Houston Texans. The biggest issue with the Arizona Cardinals offense as a whole is not that they're bad or anything. They're fucking amazing. They're fantastic. The biggest issue is every week, who's the second wide receiver? Because you know it's DeAndre Hopkins. He's number 1. He's number 1. But who's number 2? Is it Kirk? Is it Rondale Moore? Is it AJ Green? Is it Chase Edmonds? Could it be Zach Ertz getting a lot of targets this week? You know what I'm saying? So it's very confusing. It's really up in the air week in and week out. But the upside here for Christian Kirk is immense. The Arizona Cardinals are favored by like 17 points in this game. Should be a blowout. I expect Christian Kirk to play well. At number 32, we have Tyler Boyd, wide receiver of the Cincinnati Bengals, going up against the Baltimore Ravens. He normally is the odd man out in this offense, but up against the Ravens again, when they're crawling their way back into the game, maybe there's enough of a load for everyone. You get the ball. You get the ball. You all get the fucking ball. Oprah Winfrey style. I think Tyler Boyd could be in for a solid showing here up against the Baltimore Ravens. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you did end up enjoying, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, make sure you hit that like button as well. I would appreciate it a ton. I love each and every single one of you guys. I hope you have a great rest of your guys' day. And as always, goodbye.